There's an idiom in English to reach for that brass ring, and up until this morning, I never understood where that came from. Anybody's guess was as good as mine, but I looked into it and I found out, and I knew that brass ring meant, an opportunity or something that's like a prized thing. I just didn't know why we were reaching for it and where it was, and was it attached to anything? Find out today what that's about, and we're also going to ask the cards about how to reach for that brass ring in our lives. And I'll tell you, the music you're hearing in the background is a clue, so stick around for today's episode of Life's Potluck Buffet. I'm John Paulus. Thanks for joining me. So you probably guessed it, that the brass ring has to do with carousels or merry-go-rounds, and that's the music that was playing in the background. And I've never had this happen. I didn't know this was a thing, but this is what I've learned, is that a kind of mechanical device would hold out rings for carousel riders to reach for and grab. And if you get the brass one, it's like a prize. You win a prize. That's what reaching for the brass ring is about. I think probably because of liability. There probably aren't a lot of brass ring reaching things these days, because I feel like having people fall off the carousel trying to reach for a ring or whatever, or grabbing it and holding on and being pulled off the carousel, it just seems like a little bit of a nightmare insurance-wise, I'm sure, for for carousel operators worldwide. So I have a feeling you'd probably be hard-pressed to find it. But if you know of a carousel, or merry-go-round, whatever you call it, then let me know what you call it, that has a brass ring that you reach for, still operational today, please let me know in the comments where that carousel is and if you've tried to reach for the brass ring. So let's ask the cards a question about this brass ring. But instead of thinking of it as a carousel ride, let's think about it as life. So, how to reach for that brass ring in life cards. Give us a good way to think about that. Give us a little bit of advice, all right, cards? So on the bottom of the deck, as usual, is the card I talked about yesterday. And in this case, it's Think of Your Work Life as a Pie. That's card number 13 in the Life's Potluck Buffet deck, if you're playing along. And that card, we were talking about effective communication. And do you remember some of the things that I talked about were clarity of communication, knowing your audience, storytelling, and repetition. So all of those things that I talked about had to do with effective communication. And so today we will see what the cards have for us. I'm going to give it 3 casual shuffles. That's where I'm just rearranging them with my left hand, holding them in the cards in my right. And then I will cut the deck and shuffle them one last time. And I will meld them together. And then now we're looking out for, I'm going to press them together and look out for where there's a gap. What is the gap that is appropriate here? I guess it's this one. My eye was drawn to this one. Okay. So it's card number 8. Others always need something from you. Get clarity on what you do for others and what others need from you. Then align that need with what you need for yourself. What's something you do that others always ask you for? This is a card that on several episodes that I've talked about this card, when I type it into when I type it into YouTube, I always get these videos that are always like narcissists always need something from you. And like I feel like every video I type into, I don't know. So others always need something from you. It's kind of interesting because it turns the idea of the brass ring a little bit on its head, because the brass ring is something that someone's holding out for you to reach for, and it's kind of like a challenge for you to get it. And the I think that the challenge here is to think about why it's being held out and what's being held out. So we know the prize for the carousel is the free ride or some other prize. If it's the brass ring, it's maybe I don't know. I always imagine stuffed animals. Yeah, usually I feel like that's a good carnival prize. So that clarity, and we talked about clarity yesterday in terms of communication, but here we're talking about clarity in terms of understanding opportunity and setting it up so that you understand what the opportunity is that you're reaching for. I think that's really, in a sense, the most important part about this whole brass ring thing, is that the problem with the kind of generic idiom is that it doesn't say it fits any situation. The prize could be anything. The thing about our lives is that the prize isn't just anything. The prize is always something very specific. So getting clarity on what that ring that someone is holding out actually is, I think, what the cards are telling us today. That's different from what you need for yourself, of course. And this card is all about aligning what you need with that thing that somebody else needs from you. And this is talking about paid work, and we're talking about jobs. We've discussed this a few times this week about how the idea of work we do for ourselves, our hobbies, our passions, our things we are just do something for us in a big way. Maybe they're exciting. They're just, that's work that we're doing for ourselves. And that's a good litmus test to figure out what is work that I'm doing for myself and what is an opportunity that is a paid opportunity where I'm doing work for others and people need something from me. And I think about this a lot, and I think that it's the key to finding, whether it's a job, new customers, new clients, it's to find out who you're doing business with. You need to know what they need. And what you need is, in this case, money, right? It's a paid job. So that's that income part, or revenue, or salary, or however, a wage. That for you in this situation is what you need. Now, that brass ring that someone's holding out, what opportunities are attached to that brass ring? That's what we need to think about today. What are we reaching for that when we grab onto it, we're going to get it, and it's going to be something that is attainable for us? And one thing about this whole attainable business is that doesn't mean that it's something that's low-hanging fruit. I'm mixing metaphors now, but we're talking about plucking things. And I'm going to say, with all respect to myself of yesterday, talking about not mixing metaphors, I'm going to break the rules of good communication here and mix this metaphor, because the low-hanging fruit thing is the opposite of the brass ring in my world. The low-hanging fruit is a thing that's like easy stuff that isn't a challenge. This brass ring, with this brass ring, we're talking about difficulty, and we're talking about this isn't like the easiest thing to do, but it's the most rewarding and the one that's going to lead to the most flourishing for you. So being a bit, I'm going to use the word demanding about what this brass ring is, but about which brass ring you're reaching for is my thought for today. And I think that's what the cards are kind of getting at here, is about that alignment. Because when you're aligning your need with someone else's, align your biggest needs with someone else's. And then you're gonna help with someone else's biggest needs, and it's gonna fulfill your biggest needs. Whether that's the money part of it or something else related to that is going to be given to you in exchange for your work. So keep that in mind today and find out what brass ring you need to reach for, and I know that you are going to get it. Have a great day, and I'll see you next time on Life's Potluck Buffet.